here at OrthoTape.com. I'm going to show you a long arm application of a waterproof cast. What we have here is our OrthoTape Neal underpad. It is a water repellent underpad. It's basically in a cylindrical shape, so it goes on almost like stocking, so you don't have to deal with any padding. It's quick, it's easy to use, it's waterproof, and then also too, we're going to use our OrthoTape fiberglass casting tape and apply the cast as well. So I'll show you how that's done. Now in our female cast kit, basically it comes with two separate pieces. It comes with a 3-inch, which is the NUPP 3080, and the 2080. Now with the male, obviously it's a little bit bigger. We use the 4-inch and the 3-inch, but with the female, we're gonna use the 3-inch and the 2-inch. You have to remember that you always want the smaller one to go on the first and the bigger one to go on second. So again, and make sure that you have the 2-inch put on first, the 3-inch on second. So we're gonna go ahead and take this out. It all comes pre-packaged, but basically you open it up, you take it out. You'll notice that it is sufficient, long enough for the patient, so you have plenty of it, so you don't really need to use all of it actually. So we're gonna go ahead and take it and slide that on up. Have the patient put their hand there, slowly walk that up there, okay? You wanna get it up sufficient. What you don't wanna have is you don't wanna have a lot of big holes. You wanna get it up high enough to where you're actually gonna make this cast. And we're gonna do this cast at a sort of a 90-degree angle. And set it like that. So we're gonna have it like that. I'm gonna try to get this fold out, get this to come down a little bit flat here, and take this out as far as I can. Okay. Now, like I said with the guys, obviously we've got hairy arms. You don't want hair sticking through that. So once you get this thing up, let's just say you take it up even further. The best thing to do is get it up further and then start to work it down. What that's gonna do is it's gonna cause the hairs to go in that direction. It's gonna lay them down so that way they're not pushed up through those holes. So now we're gonna take it that way, get that hair down so it's nice. You wanna minimize the hole diameter. So you wanna, make sure they're bunched up a little bit. You don't want super big holes. You have plenty of stockinette to work with, so you don't want it, to be bunched up in here, but at the same time, you don't want it pulled so stretched tight that it looks like fishnet stocking. You want to definitely have it loose. And then just smooth it out there. We're gonna end up probably having to cut some of this piece out of here in order to go ahead and get that fold in there. So what I'm gonna do is cut that. Because we don't want that extra bend in there, especially if we're putting that 90-degree angle in there as well. So now we've got that piece done. We're gonna go ahead and put on the 3-inch. We're just gonna slide that up over. The other way that you could do this is you could always pull the two together, stick the 2-inch through here somehow, slide it in, and then now you've got it in one piece. And then you're gonna slide it on. But this is the 3-inch. So again, remember the 2-inch goes on first because it's easier to get the 3-inch over top of the 2-inch. And you need to make sure it's a double layer. You cannot have this as a single layer because the cast will be too thin for cast removal. And like I said, take it up pretty high so that way you can start to pull it back down. You want to get this down far enough to where you're going to finish off the cast. I always take the 2-inch and make the 2-inch stick out a little bit further than the 3-inch, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this down and fold it down over after to lock it in after I use or after I put on the cast material. So. Like I said, we have plenty of it, so you've got plenty of room. Just go ahead and get it so where that it's nice and finished up in there. We'll make sure you have the holes not too big, but just enough so that way it's nice. And then, like I said, with the guys, you want to make sure you're coming down a little bit, get that hair in that right direction. Notice how you don't see a lot of holes between there. Here you see a little bit more, here you see a little more. So you want to make sure you don't have too much of that going on, and make sure you don't have it too make sure it's nice and smooth. So I'm going to cut this piece out again. Like I said, you don't have to cut it out. I mean, it's perfectly fine to leave it there, but I'm going to just go ahead and cut it just so it looks a little bit better. So I'm gonna cut that piece there. Now you wanna make sure it's, covered there, obviously, too. You don't wanna have that, any skin showing there or anything. You don't want hair sticking out there as well, so that way you don't end up with, any cast tape sticking to it. Now, obviously, normally we'd be having somebody, hold the patient's arm in order to do this, but we've only got myself here, so this is just for demonstration purposes only. So the tape comes with it. You don't have to pay extra for it. With the other ones, the Delta Dry and the Aqua Cast, we do charge extra for the tape. But with this kit, we actually include the tape at the same cost, so it makes it an extra benefit. You get 3 rolls of 3-inch for the female and 1 roll of 2-inch. I usually use the 2-inch around the hand and the 3-inch up around the arm and such. And again, you don't have to use it all. Like I said, you might even end up with an extra 3-inch there or something like that. So we're gonna start here with our 3-inch tape. Actually, we're gonna start with our 2-inch. First, you need to make a small little spot for the thumb. The thumb piece is back here, so basically what we're gonna wanna do is go ahead and trim that piece there. Sometimes you can do it ahead of time. Oh, sorry. Then go ahead and get her to put her thumb through there. There we go. All right, then we're gonna cut this piece off down here. Make sure you don't cut where the fingers are. They can pull their fingers back a little bit. So that way we have enough room to go ahead and pull this back as well. So we're gonna tuck this in a little bit, and I'm actually gonna take a little bit more off of the 3-inch part, because what I wanna do is tuck that 2-inch, and I want the 3-inch or the other piece to be further back than the 2-inch. So that way this 2-inch I can just roll back like that, okay? So like I said, the 2-inch underneath, make it a little bit about 1 inch further out here. And the same with down here, so that way you have a nice little spot to be able to pull that back. So once we get that layer on, then we'll be able to pull it back. You want to see where those fingers are, so you know where to stop with the tape and everything. So, like I said, the 2-inch is a lot easier to work with as far as around the hand. So again, we're not going to dunk this. We're just going to go ahead and apply it, and we're going to start rolling here. I usually start at the wrist area and then work my way forward. You want to make sure, especially when you're doing the cast, that you have a little bit of padding up in here. I went a little bit over too far, but you definitely don't want it to be too close to the thumb in that spot. You can slide that over, pull the padding out some more there, so that way, she's got lots of padding by that thumb. So what you don't want to have is that cast tape rubbing up against her hand like that. So you want to reinforce the hand pretty good. And the reason is because a lot of times when people go to get up, they tend to use their hand. And a lot of kids especially if you're swimming in a pool, they go and push their hand on that, and you end up with a lot of cracking in that spot there. So you're gonna wanna make sure you do something like that. You can go ahead and cut this tape here, and since we're using the dry method, it's actually pretty good. It'll allow you to, start down here or something like that, give it a different wrap as well. You come up around, you can even cut here to do a turn. That way you can get an easier wrap around there. And like I said, you want to make sure you get the hand pretty good. And don't pull it too tight. Again, like we said, we want to make sure it's like, nice, easy cast, that we don't have too much tightness, especially that first layer. After you get the first layer down, you can start to, go ahead and, tighten it up a little bit more. Now, after you get that layer on, since we're using the dry method, I go and get my gloves. I like to get wet gloves, and that's when I usually get the cast nice and wet. This is called the dry method. Allows you to mold, things a little bit better here in the palm area, stuff like that. Smooth it on. Helps those layers bend a little bit better together. like I said, usually we'd have somebody holding her arm, so the poor girl she has to hold her arm there the whole time. So now we're gonna take this piece here and pull it back. That way we can trap that piece in, with our 3" that we're gonna use as well. Now we're gonna go ahead and set this elbow sort of more at a 90-degree angle. We'll have her hold her arm right about there, and we'll go ahead and start rolling this here, okay? We'll open up our 3". If you get anything on your gloves, it's best to sometimes change them out because you're just gonna get it on the gloves. Put a new pair of gloves on just to be able to work with this a little bit better. I'm gonna take our next 3" out. This is our 3" OrthoTape red. And we'll go ahead and start working up around that elbow. So you're gonna start right about here. Again, like I said, the first layer, you do not wanna wrap that tight. You wanna make sure you get that base nice and loose. You don't want it too tight on the patient. And one good thing about OrthoTape here is it doesn't come off the roll too fast, so if you need to do this by one person at a time and hold the other, it's nice because it lets you actually work that tape nice and easy. That's one thing that I like about it is, it doesn't come off too slippery, but it's not too sticky either. That was the perfect balance we were looking for. I know before we didn't have it that way. We did run into some issues. It was too sticky, but now tape is just perfect. And if you ever have any problems with it, you just send us a picture of the roll that went bad, and we'll be happy to replace it for you 100%. We just need a picture. So here I gotta fix this just a tiny bit. Go in here, and you'll notice how conformable it is as long as I pull it a little bit tight. You see we're able to go ahead and get that. Oh, nice. So there we have it. Pull that last piece on there a little bit. Just hold your arm there real quick. Get your hands wet. And now is when we start to rub in the water, because we didn't, again, like I said, we're doing the dry method here. So we're just gonna go ahead and get it wet this way by putting our gloves. So we're gonna hold our arm there a little bit so that way you can get it to set up so you don't have very many bends. We'll get that to sit there for a few minutes until it starts to solidify. We're gonna go ahead and lower the arm down just a little bit there. Go ahead and hold it in that. And I'm gonna fold these pieces down at the top here. These edges are so important because they're the parts that really rub against the patient. We do have a product that's called Gliese Edger that you can put along the edge, which helps the patient, especially up in these thumb areas, because you can imagine she's gonna run into problems around this thumb area the way I did that. So you would wanna cut that piece out a little bit so that way she doesn't have that rigid piece, because every time she goes and puts her thumb against that, that's gonna create a problem. So obviously I didn't do that right. I wanna have more padding come out. You can also take a piece of the padding that we did cut off. You had some extra here. You could cut a piece off and do a thumb piece as well. So you have enough extra padding to build that thumb piece if you wanted to. You can cut that square out like that. You can take it up like that and wrap it up in there like that. So if you wanted to build the thumb piece, that's an easy way to build a thumb piece. Now you just go around it with the tape as well. Then you can lock that thumb in there. So it doesn't come, we don't have a small enough amount to come with a thumb piece. So again, you just make it out of the excess that you have that comes with it. We're gonna go ahead and do our final layer here. This is the perfection layer. This is the layer I always say that we want to look pretty. Everything else can have little spots on it because you touched it and everything, but that final layer, you want it to look real nice and pretty. So we're gonna take it, get it on there, perfect it up here. You wanna make sure, get the lines lined up. I've seen so many cast technicians do this and then it just looks like terrible. I don't know who the designer is at making this cast, but the person has to wear it for a while. Don't you want it to look at least nice for them? So, take your time with it. I know you're in a rush, but you're in a rush, but they gotta wear it for however long and you want it to look nice. So, see how that final layer is gonna look real pretty. Usually the final layer is the pretty layer. That's the layer you can make it look real nice with. And that's also the layer we're gonna use to lock this piece in here. So Typically what I would do is cut here, but for application purposes, since I'm not having the person wear this too long, I'm just gonna go ahead and piece it in like this. Or I would use a 2-inch here instead. Especially with a female or a child, I'd end up doing it like that instead. The one thing I do like about the dry method is it gives you a little bit more time to work with the tape. And then you can go ahead and, add the water after. You'll see the color comes out so much nicer too on the dry method. And let's say, again, everybody thinks you always have to finish the tape, but don't. I mean, if you don't want the person to see this piece, they're always gonna see this. Why don't you cut it off right there? That way they don't have to see that end piece. That end piece stays at the bottom. Not only that, it's out of range. Nobody starts to pick at it. Nobody sees it. It stays down there. Take your gloves, get them nice and wet. And that's when you start to rub the cast nice. Get it wet to finish that final layer.